play it all or nothing. Yeah, need it all in advance. The opposition know we're ready for it. Like a supper we eating, it won't be the last. Grind all the muscle, pull up. Parker right on the grass. We coming in, take over everything, run it up. Nothing holding me back. 3 in the wood, rushing.
Welcome to Takeover, the most underrated sports debate show on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe for that bi-weekly sports content. And we're going to get right into it today. Joe Burrow and the Bengals, 0-2. After the speculation, after putting all the money in the offensive line, still 0-2. Was there a run last year, a fluke?
All right, so first of all, I'm just going to say I do not think that their run last year was a fluke. But, however, I do think that there should be some concerns. So, it's only been 2 games into the season. Now, if we go later on into the season and they have a really bad record and they don't even make the playoffs, then it will be a different discussion. But both of those games were fairly close. They lost by a field goal, and even they could have easily won those games. And it's more of them defeating themselves than anything. And even though they're 0-2 and they're struggling to finish games, I still feel like this is a playoff caliber team. But when I think of a fluke, I think about something that happens by chance. I think about something that happens by luck. So usually if you're not what you say you are, your luck typically runs out. But if you look at what they did last year, they beat all the teams that no one really expected them to beat. They beat the Raiders and the Titans. And those were teams that, no one was really counting out the Bengals, but then again, they weren't banking on them to win either. But no one really expected them to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And they were in their first playoff appearance against an experienced team in Arrowhead as well. And in the Super Bowl, you could arguably say, if it wasn't for Aaron Donald doing Aaron Donald things, the Bengals probably one play away from winning the Super Bowl, maybe. And to me, you don't go through all of that and you don't triumph through all of that, especially with a bad offensive line, through just luck. And to me, this is a good team, but like I said, there are some concerns. Like, for example, why is Joe Burrow still running for his life? Joe Burrow, as of right now, is on track to be sacked 111 times before the season ends.
That's a record. That would be crazy.
And as we know from watching him in his college years to now, Joe is a mentally and physically tough player. He was sacked 80 times last year and still took his team to the Super Bowl. But they spent all this money, like you said, on the offensive line, but they're still having the same problems. And to me, this isn't good for the longevity of the season. It isn't good for the longevity of the success of the team. And it isn't good for the longevity of Joe Burrow's health in his career. So I feel like this is a good team. This is a talented team. But going forward, they need to address the offensive line and they need to address the little tiny things that hurt them in the end of these games.
The Bengals run was an absolute fluke. And here's why. They played the Las Vegas Raiders. There was a controversial play. Was Joe Burrow out of bounds? Did the whistle blow? That's a touchdown taken off the board. That was a close game. Second game they played, it was an absolute meltdown by Ryan Tannehill. One of the worst meltdowns we've probably seen in playoff history. The third win in Kansas City, it took Patrick Mahomes blowing an entire lead for them to come back and eventually win. And then what killed them in the end and why they couldn't win the Super Bowl was the exact reason why they're a fluke. You can't win games without an offensive line. No matter how good Joe Burrow is, because he's extremely good. I'll never take anything away from Joe Burrow. He's really good. But that offensive line isn't there. You look at the last 5 Super Bowl champions, it's the Rams, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Chiefs, the Patriots, the Eagles. All those teams had at least good or above average offensive lines. No matter how supremely talented this Cincinnati Bengals offense is, if no one's blocking, it's not really going to matter. And I think you look at how loaded the AFC is right now. You look at Joe Burrow being sacked 70 times last season in only 20 games. I don't know. This team can't be. To me, this team has to be a fluke because everyone projected them to go so far this year. A lot of people had the Bengals going to the Super Bowl. Now they're having a slow start. I mean, they lost to Cooper Rush last week. Cooper Rush was giving them issues last week. You can't lose to the Dallas Cowboys without Dak Prescott. That was a gimme game, and they couldn't do it. You had Eli Apple getting cooked by Noah Brown. Noah Brown isn't even the 3 receiver on the depth chart.
He always gets cooked, though. But anyway, go ahead.
But he always gets cooked. But I'm just saying, he's a part of the reason. And you look at Joe Burrow now, it's only been 2 weeks of football. He's been sacked 13 times and has 30 pressures already. So, I mean, he's going to end up being the next Andrew Luck if Cincinnati doesn't protect him, as good as he is. And I think it speaks to how integral an offensive line is to an NFL's team. You look at Jalen Hurts over there in Philadelphia. Everyone knows that Joe Burrow is better than Jalen Hurts. But you look at the way his offensive line plays, you can see the sprout of Jalen Hurts. I think this team not having a good offensive line definitely puts a ceiling on them and opens up a lot of questions.
Football is not won on paper. And I think that's kind of the overarching argument. I get what you're saying about the offensive line, right? It's definitely an issue. It was an issue last year, and that's why they invested all that time and all that money. But when you replace 4 out of 5 starters from the previous year, it takes time for everything to come together. You know, I mean, I think the offensive line is the most. It's the part of the football team that needs the most communication, and the more familiarity that you have with your compatriots, the better. So like quarterback, wide receiver, obviously it helps to know who it is. But realistically, you could drop any quarterback and any wide receiver together, and if the wide receiver runs the right route, the quarterback can get it to him. But with offensive line, you got to have an idea of what are they good at, how are they going to deal with this, and where am I supposed to be? 4 of these 5 guys are in a completely new environment with completely new teammates and a completely new system. So it takes time for these offensive lines to gel. I think it's way too early to be saying that last season was a fluke, because there's a bunch of different reasons. Obviously, 2-game sample size, way too early to be saying a Super Bowl contender is a fluke. Second of all, they only lost by 3 points in each game, and it's not like they were playing complete tomato cans. Yeah, Cooper Rush was playing, and he put up, they played well, but let's not act like Cooper Rush was beating them single-handedly. Zeke Elliott had a good game. Tony Pollard had a good game.
And Michael Parsons.
Yeah, and this is the other thing is
they're gonna run to
Cincinnati's played the Steelers and the Cowboys. So you're telling me that in their first 2 weeks as an offensive line, they got to block T.J. Watt and Michael Parsons?
Yeah, but you put all the money in the offensive line, so you would hope this would be not a problem.
I'm with you, and the hope is obviously it would not be a problem, but it takes time for an offensive line unit to truly come together. It takes some games to kind of get comfortable where you are, especially since, again, they're in a completely new system. And on top of that, the other reason that the offense is kind of in neutral right now, the league's adjusted. The same thing happened last year to Patrick Mahomes. The biggest thing in football right now is you play a lot of 2 deep, high safety, and take away those plays over the top. And that's what the Bengals thrived on last year, was all the 50-yard, 60-yard, 70-yard bombs to Jamar Chase. So now that they can't have those, they haven't been able to adjust just yet. Part of it is because the offensive line is struggling to run block, and Joe Mixon can't take advantage of the light boxes. But the other part of it is, Joe Burrow's also coming off an appendectomy. He missed most of training camp. I'm assuming he's still working his way into game shape. So there's just a lot of factors that are working against them right now. Just because they started 0-2 doesn't mean it's a fluke.
So you just said Joe Burrow had surgery and they still can't block for him. How do you know Joe Burrow's not gonna get hurt again? This is the problem. I feel like as much as stock, I'm not saying that Joe Burrow or any of these integral pieces just had a good season and they won't be good again. But I'm saying overall as a team, I don't see how you can believe in a team whose quarterback just had surgery, the offensive line doesn't block, and this is a team that owns Eli Apple. So this is already dangerous territory for me. And this is a team that even if they get into the playoffs, they're gonna go against teams in the playoffs that all have good defensive lines. Heavens if it's the Bills. I mean, I don't know who's gonna beat them, but I'm just saying I don't know if I can trust this team going into the playoffs or going forward.
I think calling them a fluke is a little stretching it a little bit.
There's a difference between I can't trust this team right now and everything they did last year should be thrown out the window and they won't do it again.
If you're saying
we won't know that until this team gets further in the season.
That's very
true.
But
I'm calling them a fluke now. I'm calling them. I don't think they'll be as good as they were last season.
I get your point as to what you're saying, but when you're saying fluke, you're saying things happen by luck and happenstance. So my thing is just like you have Joe Burrow coming off of an ACL injury, them having a bad offensive line, and going into that Kansas City game, people were saying Kansas City had the better defense. So in situations where they were always looked at as the underdog or you couldn't win, then I feel like in order for them to overcome those situations, that doesn't make them a fluke because it didn't happen by luck because they always were the underdog.
You know what's so crazy? You say that, but we said the same thing about the Atlanta Hawks. I know I'm switching sports right here. Calling the fluke, being hot at the right time is such a crazy thing, right? Because it's always your team. I don't know why. I don't know why it's like that. But how we know the Cincinnati Bengals aren't the exact same thing? How do we not know they were hot at the right time and now maybe they skip into the playoffs and have to play a first seed and they're out the first round? Will the season be a fluke then?
I mean, it's like you said, later on in the season, if they fall off and they have a bad record and they don't make the playoffs, then of course it will be a different discussion. But if we're going off of right now, it's only 2 games. And we're looking at what they did last year. You can't discount what they did last year.
Only time will tell.
And besides, going in, honestly, I'm guilty of this as a Hawks fan. I was banking on how do I say this? An unrealistic set of expectations. I was banking on a lot of people like improving. I was banking on DeAndre Hunter, 1, actually playing, and 2, looking like a quality in an NBA wing. You know, you're banking on Trae Young to continue to just be absolutely lights out. Clint Capella wasn't healthy most of the year. There's just a lot of things that kind of work together. The same thing kind of happened with Cincinnati. And, you know, again, like I said, the O-line takes time to gel, right? And the other part of it is, I mean, how much of this is Joe Burrow, again, getting himself into game shape? Maybe he's kind of holding on to the ball too long. You know, obviously, I haven't flipped on the all-22 NFL film. I'm a college student. I don't have time for all that.
Right.
But, I mean, there's always an aspect of sometimes what if the quarterback was just like, you know, maybe he's so wired to be looking for these deep shots that he's still looking for it, even though he's not, you know, he's not seeing it immediately. He's not
and he doesn't
checking
have time.
down. And so he doesn't have time to get through all of his reads. So when he looks for Jamar deep, he's got to let that develop, and crap, he doesn't have time. So it's really just the Bengals got to adjust back.
I think we're going to find out a lot about them because they got to play the Dolphins. That's going to be a good defense. They got to play the Ravens. They got to play at New Orleans. They have to play the Browns defense. They have to go with the Steelers again. They have to play the Bucs defense, and they got to play the Bills again. So I feel like we're going to see a lot about them, and if that offensive line doesn't fix itself, I don't know if Joe Burrow is going to make it all 17 weeks, personally.
Who's their backup?
It don't matter.
Oh, hold on. I think it does matter. Somebody say something.
It don't matter. It don't matter. If Joe Burrow isn't playing, this team is not to be worried about.
No, their backup QB is Brandon Allen.
Who is that?
Oh yeah. Hey, listen. Last time he played, he went 17 of 34 for 149 yards and 2 touchdowns. Oh no, man. Brandon Allen seems like the kind of guy that can get carried through a game by Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd.
If Joe Burrow is struggling to get the ball out, now what do you think he's going to do with that offense?
Well, that's all hypothetical. Who's to say he's going to get hurt? We don't know. Maybe the offensive line figures it out. They start to look like the world beaters that they are. The defense continues to ball out. And we're talking about a completely different team.
Continues to ball out.
They haven't given him more than 23 points.
Okay. Well, there's an Eli Apple. There's a problem. Trust me, I've seen it.
Oh,
I've seen it.
Can you imagine Marshawn?
This is his revenge season, though, right? This is his revenge. He said this was his revenge season coming back, right?
I can't defend that part.
That's gonna wrap this episode. You guys have anything to say?
Hey, baseball.
Braves in the playoffs.
Braves in the playoffs. Braves, boy. Yeah. Guaranteed rookie of the year. Guaranteed. Hey, we don't care about the Dodgers. We don't care about the Mets. We're coming. Everybody is on the menu. It's gonna be a beautiful thing.
Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you can be notified every time we upload. Make sure you guys leave a comment. We want to hear what you think and submit takes. We know y'all like to argue, so we can respond to you guys because we care about what y'all think.
And in the comments, tell us what you think. Were the Bengals a fluke last year? Or are they still trying to get it together, or is it too early? Let us know. Takeover out.
Hey, champ. Yeah, we play it all in night. Yeah, need it all in advance. The opposition know we're ready for it. Like a supper we eating, it won't be the last. Grind all the muscle, pull up. Parker right on the grass. We coming in, take over everything, run it up. Not that holding me back. 3 in the wood, rushing. I don't like Dutch, don't even matter. You know I'm a facing. When I roll a paper, I like to go double. Run up a check, flip a W, make it an M. I need